Hello and welcome to the Unplug Podcast. I'm here with Amanda Gilbert, and we are going to be talking about all of the amazing things that she's done on the Unplug app and her brand new book, Kindness Now. Cue, show the book, Amanda.
Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so excited to
You're going to have to put it up closer so we can all see.
There we go.
Oh, there. A 28-day guide to living with authenticity, intention, and compassion.
Yes.
Who doesn't want that? So you're all about kindness. How did this book come to be? What's in the book? Can you tell us like all the good stuff? Let's say we finish the book. What do you think our walkaway would be from it?
Well, I actually love what you started with, which is like, why did this book come to be? And that directly ties to the outcome of the book as well. What people will walk away with, what practitioners will walk away with. And so the reason why I wrote this book was because the last many years of teaching at Unplug and other public settings, and especially in the university settings that I teach meditation in, I started to notice that I was consistently being asked by meditators who were exposed to meditation or had learned the basics of meditation. I was getting asked the constant question, what's next? Where do I go from here? How do I deepen my meditation practice? What is the next terrain of exploration here? And so I started to notice that question coming up pretty much all of the time. And from the mindfulness perspective, what I know from my training and even know from my own path of practice is that once we learn to establish our attention in the present moment, which is what we do through mindfulness, basic mindfulness meditation, we then really step into the next terrain of practice, which is how do we meet what's here? And so this is why the book was actually focused on this central question, because how we meet what is here, our thoughts, our feelings, our sensations in the body, the present moments of our life is essential and pivotal and probably one of the most important aspects of meditation. So the how is where the heart practices come in, which are kindness, loving kindness, compassion, appreciative joy, and equanimity. And so the whole book is an exploration into the traditional heart practices of mindfulness meditation, known as the Brahma Viharas in Buddhist tradition, and what you will walk away with from having this book a part of your life and with you as you practice over the course of a month, because it's a 28-day study guide on the Brahma Viharas, is you will be able to meet whatever it is that arises in your practice in a much more alkalizing, approachable, and manageable way. And so you'll gain more insight. And then the whole purpose of the Brahma Viharas really is to lead us back to our original state of open-heartedness and open-mindedness. And so it's this beautiful blend when we start to deepen a meditation practice of establishing our attention in the present moment through mindfulness, and then bringing in the medicine of the heart. And so we can, almost compost what's here, transform what's here, be with what's here, and let us do that with a state of an open heart.
Why you?
Whew. I mean, in a sense, this book actually chose me, to be honest. And that has been like one of the most humbling aspects of this whole writing process. And because for me, a very pivotal moment in my own meditation path, I've been meditating for 17 years and have had a consistent meditation practice since 2009. And so I remember so vividly the moment I was first introduced to these sets of teachings, loving kindness and compassion, joy and equanimity. And it was that moment that really, I noticed a real deep sense of transformation in my own meditation practice. Things got real, things got deep, things got just so raw and honest, when I welcome these practices into my own daily meditation practice. And so I've always, as you said, at the beginning, like, you're all about kindness, Amanda. Like, why? Like, what is this? That's really been the place that I've come from. It's like my bedrock of understanding in my own meditation practice is that kindness is what makes everything workable and approachable. It's what makes things transmutable in our meditation practice. And so, it's through my own firsthand experience of this, and then again, just really thinking about what I wanted my first book to be about. It just became clear as day at the beginning of the whole book process. We actually connected. I remember we were outside of Unplug Studio in Santa Monica, and this was a few summers ago, I think. And you were just asking, like, what's going on with you? Are you writing your book yet? And it was right around that time that I was really in this open inquiry, like, what set of teachings do I want to land on for this book? And then within a few months later, it just became clear as day that the Brahma Viharas were the exact set of teachings that were most timely for modern meditators right now. So why me? Like, I'm still exploring that question. I mean, I'm well trained in meditation and
I
know
guess
these
what I meant
teachings.
by, and what
Mm,
I mean by when I say why you is we always gravitate towards the things we need the most.
yeah.
So when I think of you, Amanda, and I
Mm,
feel I know you because I've meditated with you for a long time now. I think of just the kindest, most loving, but yet
mm,
professional person. You
mm.
can go into a corporation, you can go into a school, you can teach 1,000 people, you can teach one person. You're just always so lovely.
Mm.
Is there like a part of you that needs to call on that kindness because naturally you're going to scorch the village? Or is it just something that you are and everybody's like, how are you that way? That
Yeah.
drove you to drive this type of meditation and kind of stay on this path, so
Mm.
to speak.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you just reframed that, because the whole reason why I started teaching meditation was because of that exact inquiry or question. I started to get asked from people who I was working with in research at the time up in San Francisco, by my friends, my personal people in my close circle, by the local coffee shop barista who would see me like every single day on my way into UCSF to do my work there. I started to get asked a very similar question, which is like, what's up with you? What makes you you? You handle that moment in that meeting so gracefully, or you're always so happy and kind and lovely and everything. And I finally landed on, what people were really asking, which is like, okay, what makes me me? And I was like, well, I've been a long time meditator. I'm a daily meditator. That's the thing.
Mhm.
And I hold the firm belief that mindfulness and kindness practice hold the innate mechanisms and techniques and practices within them to really bring us back to our true state of authenticity, to our genuine nature.
Mhm.
And it softens us in the process. It brings us back to those good, deep aspirations and intentions within our hearts. So the loveliness that maybe you're speaking of, or that sweetness, has, if anything, I think why that is because I've just really been on the cushion for years, meeting my own stuff, my own mind and heart, my own pain, my own, past difficulties and challenges, with just as much mindfulness, as much compassion, and as much love and kindness as I can. And we become what we focus on. We become these qualities of the heart. So
Mhm.
I always say, mindfulness and kindness aren't that far away. These qualities they're intrinsic to us. And our meditation practice, specifically the practices of the Brahma Viharas, are just the way for us to get back to this original state of loveliness
Mhm.
and kindness of who we really are.
What are the Brahma. How do you pronounce it? How do you pronounce it? Where does it come from? What is it exactly?
I love this set of teachings so much because when I first heard the definition of Brahma Vihara, it captured my heart. It captured my intention. Because the translation of Brahma Vihara is Brahma means heavenly or best, and Vihara translates as dwelling or home or abode. So these four qualities of the heart are really heart states and mind states that we can learn to dwell in as human beings. And they come from traditional Buddhist meditation. So the Buddha really gave us this path, this course of practice as mindfulness meditators or meditators who choose to engage in this lineage of practices. And one of his main teachings is, let's see, I just want to make sure that I say this correctly. So he gave us the insight in how meditation actually works. He taught that we must become skilled in goodness in order to know the path of peace. We must become skilled in goodness in order to know the path of peace. And so right away in one of those early teachings from the Buddha, he was giving us this insight of these two important branches of practice. The path of peace is our ability to live in the present moment. That's how we gain that sense of inner peace and equanimity within. And when he references skilled in goodness, what is that goodness he's talking about? It's the innate qualities of the heart, and we have to train in them. We have to learn how to touch into them. We have to become skillful at meeting ourselves and our lives with kindness and friendliness, love, compassion, forgiveness, non-judgment, all of these facets of the heart. Mm-hmm. And so the Brahma Viharas are these four sets of teachings, and together they lead us back to our original state of open-heartedness.
And is loving kindness one of those, or is that not part of this? Like, what are the four key techniques?
Yes. So loving kindness is actually the foundation of the Brahma Viharas. Absolutely. And the first, classically they're taught together and somewhat in the usual order. So we first start with loving kindness or metta meditation, and then we move into compassion practice, or known as karuna in Pali, the language of Buddhist texts. And then we move into appreciative joy. Some meditation circles call it sympathetic joy or altruistic joy. I tend to land on appreciative joy because there's an element and flavor of it that is just so full of gratitude, which we can talk about in a little bit.
For that last one. Do you hear that buzzing? Okay.
Oh yeah. Okay. Now I hear it. Okay.
Hold on. The light just went off like that.
Okay.
Okay, so you're going to have to go back to number 2.
Okay. I'm so glad we have editing.
Yeah. Go back to back before the buzz.
Okay.
So go back to karuna, which sounds like corona.
Yeah. So the second heart quality is compassion or karuna. And then the third heart quality is known as appreciative joy, or I tend to call it and relate to it as appreciative joy. Some meditation circles call this abode of the heart sympathetic joy or altruistic joy. I've landed on appreciative joy because there is such a feeling of gratitude that tends to arise in my own body, heart, mind experience, because the practice of mudita or appreciative joy is when we actually consciously we consciously practice being happy for others instead of being like jealous or comparative or, always trying to kind of measure ourselves against them when they're having moments of happiness or success. This appreciative joy is just such a radical practice right now. I've been really, really into it the past many years. And then that leads us to the fourth quality of the heart, which is equanimity or upekkha. Equanimity is, really like the cooling agent to the other three heart qualities, meaning that, loving kindness will ask a lot of us at times, as I'm sure maybe you've practiced. Loving kindness is it asks a lot of us, like, hey, I don't want to be kind to this thought that I'm having right now, or how can I meet this feeling, this feeling that I'm holding, this pain, this judgment? How can I hold this with kindness? Kindness is really, really radical in that way. So, loving kindness will ask a lot of us. Compassion will ask more of us in such a deep way at times. Appreciative joy will like kind of stretch us and expand us and, poke at our belief systems and, really ask us to move into that state of rejoicing for ourselves and others. And so those are very like warm, energetic qualities at times. Whereas equanimity, it like cools it all down. It's like the balancing agent of the heart. It's the balancing energetic of the heart, and what I love about equanimity is that it's also a natural facet of mindfulness practice. We naturally grow our equanimity of mind and evenness of mind when we meditate, when we bring our attention back to the present moment.
Mm-hmm.
When it's practiced in the context of the Brahma Viharas, it allows us to be sustainable with these heart practices. It allows us to build this kind of inner sense of home, this inner sense of steadiness, this inner stability, so we can resource and balance in order to keep meeting ourselves in the world with kindness, compassion, and appreciative joy.
Love it. How let me just write something down because I'm inspired. Um Having a t-shirt inspiration moment. You know how they do those houses where it's like establish and then the date?
Yes.
And it's like EST. I'm like, we should do that EST present moment. Okay. So where are you from? Where did you go to school? What did you do before you did this? How did you learn how to meditate? I want the whole story. Where's the conflict?
Yeah.
From the beginning until you started
Mm.
practicing to then you becoming this like superstar meditation teacher.
Mm. Well, I share this story in the book for the first time, just in a more succinct way. And there's actually been a few comments and reflections from some early readers who've had the book the last few weeks. And one of the initial comments was like, wow, I'm learning more about you, Amanda, for the first time. And it's similar people, like who we practice with and who we know too, Suze. It's like people who've known me for a long time. And they have just really said like, wow, like I didn't know you've been meditating since high school. I didn't know that the first time that you did meditate was at this high school, this home school in the rolling hills of West Virginia, in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains. And it was a very non-traditional school. And at the beginning of our school days, when I was finishing up like my last couple credits of chemistry and like algebra, I think, at the beginning of our school days, we were asked to circle up and sit down and to practice together and to meditate together and to visualize these elements of like what our true north was, what it is we wanted for ourselves, what type of lives we wanted to live, how it is we wanted to embody essential qualities like peace and kindness and calmness and love. And it was during these first mornings in the middle of West Virginia where I learned how to meditate, but I also touched into this state of inner belonging and peace that I'd like always been looking for as a young person. I tried all these different ways to try to touch into this feeling. beforehand. And it was the first time that I actually felt really at home in myself ever since I was like a really, really young little girl. And from that moment onwards, I always remembered that. And I kept studying meditation. I kept showing up to, meditation classes, so to speak. And meditation kept finding me over the course of the years following. I studied it in my undergraduate studies, even. And then, though, to your point, it wasn't until I had just like a really life-changing early adulthood moment where just everything as I knew it changed, just life as I knew it changed. Very, very painful and difficult moment to navigate. And on the heels of this experience, I knew I needed help. I was so broken. I was like in a pile of broken pieces, totally lost, my sense of identity and that connection to who I was. And so I knew I needed help. And I remember a few months into this process, the awareness dropped in and said, meditation has always helped you these years past. Like, why don't you see what is there for you? Why don't you see what meditation might do to help you, heal right now? And so that's when I actually got really, really serious about meditation. I went and
That would
found
be that 2009.
that was in 2009. Oh, it was between 2006 and 2009, actually. And so by 2009, I had found this my first meditation home and my first set of meditation teachers, started to study really seriously with them and committed to a daily meditation practice. And that is what really set me on the course of healing personally, of course, but then as we were talking about a few moments ago, starting to just naturally, in a daily way, work with these innate qualities of the mind and the heart. And then fast forward many years later, I'm doing clinical research on mindfulness and meditation with just some of the most incredible scientists in the world. I was studying with everyone at the Chopra Center as well. Let's pause for a moment because you might hear this background noise. 1 second.
I don't hear it.
Okay, good. Okay, good. So I was studying at the Chopra Center during these early years of daily practice and doing research. And then that question started to be asked of me quite a bit, like, what's up with you? What do you do each day? What gym do you go to? What yoga studio are you a part of? I remember I got cornered in like the lunchroom at UCSF at one point by this work colleague of mine in a totally different research department. And I was pulling out like my lunch for the day, and he like popped into the kitchen and was basically like, what are you having for lunch? Like, what do you eat each day? Because, you're just like, I love seeing you each day. You're so nice and, just present and etc. So he was like looking at my salad. I was like, it's just a normal salad. This is nothing special going on here. So, yeah. And so I just really, again, I landed on that truth of like, oh, they're asking about my practice. That's the answer. So I started to share that answer. I'm a meditator. I've been meditating very consistently for a long time. And then I started to informally get asked to teach, my friends and some of my work colleagues what my meditation practice was. They wanted to know how to do it. And by that time, I had such a deep respect for my teachers and for all the lineages
And
I'd
who
been
were
studying
they?
with.
Like, who were some of the key influencers of your?
Early on, it was Deepak Chopra, 100%, and David G. I loved studying with David G so much in those days at the Chopra Center. So it was Deepak, it was David G, and then
Did you know Amanda from then?
Of course.
I mean, I'm sorry. Did you know Megan from then?
I thought you met.
Oh yeah, and Amanda.
Right? Yes,
Yep.
yes. So yes, and Megan and I actually met around that same era, and it was actually when I was down at the Chopra Center doing research, maybe around 2010 or 2011. So I first started studying with the Chopra Center, would go down there and even volunteer at their like week-long meditation events. And then after that, just through all this beautiful synchronicity, was a part of the team up in San Francisco who was conducting the original research down at the Tropa Center. So then I was down there and met Megan, I think around that time. And then most interestingly though, and especially through the years of my clinical research collaboration, or I was working on behalf of and with Dr. Alyssa Epple. So I was helping her run her research. I was, just one of her people who was helping her with their studies. And it was around that time that I actually first started to sit with more mindfulness-based circles. And those early influencers for me were Jack Kornfield. Mm-hmm. The first time I practiced loving kindness, didn't even know traditional loving kindness, didn't even know about the Brahma Viharas at all at that time. I was at Jack's weekly sitting group up in Marin County in Spirit Rock and didn't even really know who Jack was, really frankly. I somewhat heard of him, but didn't really know who he was, and was there at one of his sitting groups. He was the first meditation teacher that I sat with who guided me through loving kindness practice, traditionally and formally. And it was in that moment where I just remember, and I talk about this in the book as well, where I was like, oh, this is kind of what I've been looking for, these feelings of warmth, these feelings of openness, these feelings of deep understanding, when Jack was having us silently repeat some loving kindness phrases in the mind of, may I be happy, right? May I feel healthy and strong. May my life unfold with ease. May I be free from difficulty and suffering. And these phrases were just kind of landing in my body and my heart. And I was like, this is it. I feel a little awkward wishing myself to be happy. And it was like my first time meditating with loving kindness. And there was that moment of like cognition of like, oh, this is a little unusual. May I be happy? But then within a few minutes, more deeply, I had that insight like, well, actually, yeah, I really do want to be happy. And I really do want to be free from suffering and free from fear and free from difficulty. Yeah, I actually do really want these qualities, a part of my life. And so Jack Kornfield, huge influence on my mindfulness practice. And then from there, I've had the sweetest mentors and my, my teachers who I still sit with today. And they are Matthew Brensilver, who's a teacher up in the Bay Area at Spirit Rock. Diana Winston and Marvin Belzer, both at UCLA in Los Angeles at the Mark Center there.
Mark. Mark also. I took his 6-week Mark course.
Yes.
That was actually one of my first introductions to meditation. And they do such a good job there.
Yes, I too. So sitting with Mark was one of kind of my more formal, systematic year-long trainings in mindfulness meditation, Chusus. And I just still, like all these years later, I go back and I sit with Diana, I sit with Mark from time to time, and I have that same feeling. I'm like, this is just so true. This is so honest. This is such real, genuine practice. They do the best job there. And I love the community there too. And so
Natalie Bell, you know Natalie Bell, right? So Natalie's a teacher at UCLA also at that point. She's amazing.
Yes. Natalie is wonderful. And I love also connecting with her through the Mark community as well. And then more present time, I've been sitting with Trudy Goodman too.
She's amazing too.
Truly, she's the forward author for Kindness Now. She wrote a beautiful foreword for our book. I just was so honored and grateful to have her blessing a part of.
It's interesting because I got the book, and first of all, beautiful book. Can you flash the cover again?
Yes.
And I was holding it and looking at it and loving it, and I'm like, I need to read it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to save it for after this conversation. Because I find that when I know more and then I dive in deeper, it makes the experience so much richer. And
I get that.
I can't wait to read this book and learn about, what happened between 2006 and 2009. Are you sharing that story in there? a little bit?
Not the specific details, just that moment and that bridge from my high school first experience of learning meditation to that time to 2009.
Okay, so
Yeah.
well, I'm going to obviously want to go deeper, maybe offline. And then I'm excited to kind of do this program because it is supposed to be read and done day by day, correct?
Yes, the 28 days is.
Right.
I love that you're bringing this in because I've gotten a couple other reflections from some early readers, which is that I've been getting questions around like, well, is there enough information for me to go into day one immediately, or how is the book formatted and laid out? And the book was really structured after my own daily meditation practice, in the sense of the format or the path of the daily teachings. But what I also did, Susan, this is where a lot of the stories are in the book too, is I started out with the introduction, and then 3 chapters of just providing hopefully a lot of view about the Brahma Viharas, and specifically how these 4 practices, these 4 qualities of the heart, and each week that's dedicated to them in the 28 days of practice in the book, why this is timely right now and why this is important, and how these 4 qualities of the heart bring us back to our true state of authenticity, why they are the very set of teachings and techniques that really bring the mind and the heart together as human beings. So that's all chapter 2 is talking about, how the heart practices bring our mind and our heart together in a very beautiful way, and how we can live intentionally by engaging with the heart practices. And then chapter 3 is all about change, real change through compassion, and how to really live our heart-based life, really live our compassionate life. And so the first few chapters, I know for me, I like to kind of know, it sounds like you too, like I kind of like to know a little bit about what this is, what I'm getting into, why should I do it? Why is it relevant to me in my life right now? So the first part of the book is really just that, is my intention was to share a lot of stories and teachings and bigger view about the Brahma Viharas, and then readers and practitioners go into the 28 days of Brahma Vihara practice. And what I from a meditation field perspective and from a practitioner perspective, what I really appreciate about the book is that it's very systematic with each week of training. I guide us through the beginning stages of each heart quality, sending loving kindness to ourselves, for example, and then day by day, step by step, we start to learn techniques and practices to start to send these qualities like loving kindness to others in the world, our difficult people, the people who drive us nuts, our difficult political leaders, our difficult communities of people, to all beings everywhere. And so traditionally, each of the heart practices are they move through these 7 stages: self, benefactor, neutral person, like your local grocery store clerk or tea shop barista or whoever you see all the time, but you don't know them really well, then to your difficult people, and then to all beings everywhere. And so each week it goes through that same sort of systematic training, focused on each of the 4 heart qualities.
That's so cool. That sounds so amazing. I'm so excited to dive in deeper, get to know it, get to know myself through reading. I have to say, I am such a huge fan, of people who write books, because it's like they take their entire soul and all their wisdom and they put this in the short, compact version that is like the best of you and everything you know. So thank you for sharing that with us. And, for those of you who are just watching this, definitely check out Amanda's meditations on the Unplug Meditation app. They're so good. Even I love your teacup meditation too. It's just so like taking a tea break. 5-minute mindfulness. You do so many amazing things. And do you have your own, are you doing a program around this book too? Or is it like an online program?
I've been getting asked that quite a bit recently, and so I'm thinking about it. I'm sort of exploring of creating an actual course or kind of practice community experience around the book. But there's actually a book club happening too. So that's kind of my way of feeding that need or meeting that desire right now, is that about a week after Kindness Now launches on June 22nd of 2021, I'll be hosting a couple of book clubs. And I really, to your point, I just really feel like it's important to practice this and these teachings with people. From a mindfulness perspective, there's 3 ways we deepen a meditation practice, which is 1, through learning teachings of meditation through the conceptual understanding of our practice, receiving teachings, reading books, listening to podcasts, going to sit with your favorite teachers. The second way we deepen is through our direct experience in meditation itself. So your time on the cushion, your time in practice. Then the third way we deepen, though, is actually through community. And as we've seen at Unplug, like the community is just such a sweet, talk about lovely and sweet. It's such an important and sweet part of the practice. And so I always, especially these days on the heels of the pandemic, I am really putting community practice first and foremost. So there's a few book clubs, maybe an upcoming like study course around Kindness Now. But I just also, how I am is maybe, is just meeting the moment as it is. So right now it's sinking into this practice conversation with you, launching the book soon, and just, meeting the moments as they arise.
Meeting the moment with kindness. Kindness now. Well, Amanda Gilbert, thank you so much for coming onto the show. And to check out her book, go to Amazon or basically any small bookstore as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it will be sold at the Unplug Meditation Studio in Los Angeles, which is opening live on June 15th. But we'll be launching this podcast hopefully on the date of your release, which is, did you say June 22nd?
Yes, exactly.
Hi,
Yep.
June 22nd. All right. Well, thank you so much. And I loved having you on the show.
Thank you for having me. So good to be here with you.